Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Coffee Time. I am your host, Byron. Alongside me is former MLB player, now turned realtor, as most of my former players are. I got to ask you, let's start off there. What is it with the trend of MLB players wanting to be realtors? What is there more money involved in that than you ever played? I'm just curious. You're not the only one. I've had tons of others that turn into realtors. So is that a lot more money than what playing baseball is?
I'm not really positive. I never really thought about it. It's definitely not more money than playing baseball is, I'll tell you that. But you could get to that level. You just have to kind of grow yourself into that on the real estate side. But for me, I was always interested in real estate investing.
Mhm,
So originally, I wanted to do that, and my wife didn't feel comfortable when we were transitioning out of baseball to do that right away. So I
mhm,
got my license to just kind of learn more about real estate. Decided to become a full time realtor just to help people um, buy and sell houses, and it kind of evolved from there. So that's my path, but I can't really tell you why others do. Maybe because you don't need to go and have a full degree, because a lot of
mhm,
us don't have a completed degree at college.
mhm.
So maybe that's it.
So you were a switch hitter and you threw right. Now tell us what's the philosophy of a switch hitter? How much more difficult is that, or is that easier than being just one sided? Because I'm a lefty both ways, so I throw and I hit left. How much difference is it, or is there no difference at all?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I began switch hitting in pro ball. So I don't know if you knew that about my story, but I began after my rookie season. So I went to short season when I got drafted by the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get into the Instructs League that next year, and they approach me and they're like, hey, we see you've got speed. We would love for you to try to switch hit and hit from the left side now. So before that, pretty much my whole life. When I was real little, I did mess around on the left side quite a bit. But then, like by the age of 8, I was pretty much a right-handed hitter. So when
Mm-hmm.
they approached me at that time, I was a 32nd rounder. I was like, yeah, I'll try whatever you want me to try. I didn't really have any pull otherwise. So I was open to trying to be coached, and so they taught me how to switch hit from the ground up, and I'm very thankful for that. But it is definitely much harder, in my opinion, to do than just hitting on one side, because if you mess up, like let's say you get in a slump,
Mm-hmm.
if you get in a slump on both sides, you're really in trouble as a switch hitter.
Right.
But and I've been through that, and then at least sometimes it's good because if you get in a slump on one side but not the other side, you just are really excited for hitting on the good side, obviously. But it can be really challenging because you really have to work twice as hard on two different sides of your body, and it can be really challenging to do that.
Now that you mentioned about a slump, we like you said, we all go through slumps as a hitter. Even when I was playing, although it was granted it was little league, that's how far I could ever get into. I went in through a lot of slumps. Now my mindset going into slumps when I was hitting, I wasn't good either way, so I just took it as is. I sucked, so I just took it as is. If I got out of it, I got out. If I didn't, I didn't. So what? When you're in a slump, like you just said yourself, when you're in a slump, I'm sure you've been through it as well. What's your mindset and how do you get out of being into a slump?
Man, I wish I had the answer for that because I would have been a lot better hitter in my career. But what I did was I would go back to the basics. I would try to get to the foundation of like what really worked with my swing.
Mhm.
And so what I would do is I'd go to the cage and just start fresh. Literally the stuff I learned when I was in little league and beginning of middle school and high school. And I would just go back to the basics and do simple drills. Sometimes that would help. And then other times I couldn't kick it. And for whatever reason, I was creating a bad habit on the field. I would just have to kind of work out of that. And then a lot of that is gaining confidence. As soon as you feel success again, you're able to like roll on that success. And so it's really challenging. Slump's a mental thing, but it can be a little bit physical too. So it can be really challenging. So I don't have all the answers, but I wish I did.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like you said, all you can do is like just go back and work at it, or if you're as, or if you were me, I had my mindset just it is what it is of my slump, because I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I was horrible anyway, so I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just mind the slump. I'm not going nowhere. So
That's funny.
so in before you got drafted by the Nationals, you played collegiate ball with Mercer University, and you played COD League as well. Now, did you know you were going to go in the draft? Were you scouted? How did that whole process work out for you, and that you knew you were going to get drafted?
Yeah, so I was drafted actually at a high school by a scout here locally. I'm from East Cobb, which is just north of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And East Cobb's a big baseball hub, a lot of travel ball tournaments here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough to be seen by a local scout here named Roy Clark. And I played baseball with his son growing up. I played football, and he would come watch my games.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me one second.
No, you're good.
Excuse me. Um, so Roy Clark drafted me out of high school, and I definitely did not know that I was going to get drafted out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of surprised me. And when I got drafted out of high school, it didn't work out finances wise. They didn't give me a great offer, and they told me, they're like, hey, you should go to college for 3 years, and then we'll draft you again.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was the Braves where Roy Clark was, but in 3 years, I had just like one other scout reach out to me. Ironically, it was the Oakland A's scout.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hey, would you sign for like $5,000 or $10,000 as a junior out of college? And I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like I didn't have a lot of money, so like I didn't know how I would make ends meet if I took that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So lo and behold, Roy Clark was with the Nationals at that time, and he puts my name in the draft room in the Nationals, like draft day, and they drafted me in the 32nd round. And of course, I know Roy Clark had a big part of that, if not the whole part of that. So he really was kind of always vouching for me just because he saw me growing up. So I was very lucky to have just one guy who believed in me and give me a shot to get to the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your stats, your minor league career with the Nationals that you had, Player of the Year in 2013. Take us through that year. I mean, that's one hell of a year for you. Take us through that year and what it meant to you to actually have that award, Player of the Year, for at least for minor league. At least I know that's still. I know it's not the major league Player of the Year, but hey, it's something. That's still a big time award for minor league players.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So again, so I started switch hitting. My first full season switch hitting was 2012.
Right.
And did pretty well, but had a bit of a hiccup where there's two aspects of my game that really mattered to me, and it was hitting, getting on base, hitting,
right,
and then stealing bases, because that was kind of my forte growing up, and also in the minors, and kind of what got me to the minor leagues. So that 2012 season, I was on base a ton. I did get injured a little bit that year, got hit by a pitch in the knee, and it kind of hindered me from stealing as much. Mm-hmm. So I stole a good amount at the beginning of the season, and then kind of fell off at the end of the season. So I didn't really put it all together that first year, but I was getting on base. I was surviving and battling, even though I was learning switch hitting. I would just foul pitches off until they walked me pretty much. And then the next year, it kind of all came together. So I was hitting well, but then also I was stealing bases and didn't get injured really that year, besides minor things here and there. And so I was able to put together a really solid full season of stealing bases at a high clip, and also hitting and getting on base well. So that was a really fun year for me. It was my most complete year as far as who I am as a player. And I'm very thankful I had the coaching staff around that I did that year just to kind of mold me, get me through slumps. Because I even hit a slump that year, but it doesn't look like it from the stats. So, I had some good staff around me helping me and encouraging me.
So on December 11th, 2013, you get traded to Oakland for Jerry Blevins, a damn good pitcher as well, a damn good pitcher. Um, did you know you were going to get traded right away? How did that process work, and what was your mindset as getting traded? Did you take it as you wanted to stay with the organization, or did you know, oh hey, this is a business, this is going to happen eventually? Tell us through that whole experience.
So I was pretty stunned when I found out. I had no idea. There was nobody telling me there was a rumor of that or anything. And remember, I'm coming off minor league player of the year with the Nationals, so I was very, very entrenched with the Nationals. I thought like I had a good thing going, even though there was really nowhere to go to get to the big leagues unless like a bunch of people got injured.
Right.
It was still an organization that was making me the best player I thought I could be. So was very, very comfortable with the Nationals, the family, the coaching staff, all that. So I was in the gym. I used to play racquetball every off season, and I was in the gym playing racquetball with my old high school coach. And I come out, and my buddy's calling me, and he calls me like twice. So I just pick it up in between my racquetball games. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, "You just got traded." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I'm playing racquetball. What do you mean?" So, um, so I look at my phone and I've got like 10 text messages. My agent's called me. I missed calls from my agent. So instantly I'm just getting blown up, and I'm like, holy cow, like I really did get traded. Like I was shocked, and I was kind of hurt. I was like, man, like the Nationals didn't want me to continue. So I was kind of hurt at first. Then, I talked to my agent and he calmed me down a little bit. He's like, hey, this is a good opportunity. Oakland is a great place for you. So I got traded to Oakland, and they're a great place for you. They really love what you do, getting on base and that kind of thing. So once I kind of came to grips with it, I was like, okay, I see that there's a plan for me. God kind of had a plan for me to go to Oakland and have an opportunity.
Yeah, you did. I know it wasn't player of the year, but you did good. You hit that time you were up there in the minors with them. You had 250 average. You stole 51 stolen bases with Midland Rockhounds. I guess that's their AA team.
Yes.
So tell us about that experience before you ultimately got to call up the following in 2 years on May 24th of 2015 with the team. So tell us through that whole experience with the Oakland A's minor league system.
Yeah, so came into big league camp for the first time with Oakland, which was a great experience for me. I'm around some veterans in the game. I'm learning from Chili Davis was the hitting coach at the time, so I got to learn from him, and he was a great switch hitting coach. So again, had great coaching staff around me. Went to AA that year with with the Oakland A's organization in Midland. Did well stealing bases for quite a while, and then wasn't hitting as well as I would have liked to, but kept my numbers up for the base stealing. And then actually, the end of 2014, I got called up, and like almost into, like, it was July 28th, I think. It was almost into August. I got called up for 3 days because there was an injury at the big league level. Got called up to the big league straight from AA. And then 3 days later, they made a huge trade for like Cespedes and some other big. It was like a blockbuster trade because they were on a playoff hunt.
Yep.
And they sent me back down to AAA for the last month of the year in August. And then I got called back up for September call up to try to steal bases and help the club kind of advance. So
I don't remember though. Ultimately, did you guys make the playoffs that year?
So we made the wild card game, and we lost to the Kansas City Royals in like 13 innings, and then they went on to make it to the World Series, and they lost in the World Series that year.
How weird that that team eventually being your team after you guys played each other in the playoffs.
Very weird, yes, very weird. It's just kind of ironic, how that all works out. And same thing with the only scout that called me before the Nationals drafted me were the A's scout, and they ended up trading for me a couple years later. So it's just kind of funny.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it any better. But tell us about that. That, like you said, that was your first initial call up. Like you said, you had that before that Cespedes trade. That was your original call up. Did you ever get to take the field, or were you just like primarily on the bench your first call up?
Yes, I took the field literally that night, I believe. So I'm sure you've heard stories about this, but we drove all the way through the night in the Texas League the day I got called up. So we were driving from like another Texas team. I think we were going to Frisco, Texas, which is near Dallas, and drive all night. You're exhausted. You get to the hotel room. You just want to take a nap so that you can gear up for like going to the field. Well, I'm like laying down in my hotel room, and I get a call from the travel secretary in the big leagues, and he's like, "Hey, we got your flight ready. We got this going. When can you be at the airport?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, nobody told you got called up?" And I'm like, "No." So I'm so confused. I have no idea. I thought he was like playing a prank on me at that point, probably. So I get a call from my manager just seconds later, and he's like, "Hey, pack all your stuff and come to the locker room and talk to me in my office." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." So I packed all my bags up. I brought to the field, came into his office, and he was like, "Hey, you're going to the big leagues, man. Really proud of you." And was just so excited. I was like, I can't believe that I'm actually getting to go to the big leagues. So you play your whole life to get there.
Right. Yep.
And when it happens, it almost doesn't feel real. You're like walking in a dream, So I was very excited to get that opportunity. So I get to the big leagues that night, hopped on a plane, got to the big leagues, got there like in the second inning. So they were already playing in Houston. And I believe they put me into pinch run in like the 8th or 9th inning. And first pitch, the batter swung, so I didn't get a chance to steal a base or anything. But it was really exciting to get in the game, break the ice a little bit, and get the nerves out.
Now, your first stolen base, did you get to keep the stolen base in the majors? Your first ever stolen base? Did you get to keep that?
No.
Come on. You should have asked for that.
No, I didn't.
Aw. Well, what about your first hit? Do you remember who that was off of? And did you ever get to keep the ball? Did you get to keep the ball? Because I know that happens every time somebody gets called up. Once they hit, they get the ball. Did you get do you still have that ball?
I think I do have that ball. Again, it was such a whirlwind that like first time call up, everything's going so fast. I think they did give me the ball, so I'd have to find it somewhere. But it was off of James Paxton. We were in Seattle. I had already had a few at bats because they did let me start that first call up in Houston. They let me start in center field. It did not go well. I was 0 for 4, and I think I made an error in the outfield and just was very nervous. So when I was a September call up, I was around the game a lot more, around the big leagues a lot more. So I was a lot more comfortable. And I got a chance to pinch hit for somebody for whatever reason. Somebody got injured in the game. We were already winning quite a bit by that point of the game. So they put me into hit, and James Paxton, pretty solid pitcher, lefty. So they let me, get in there and bat righty, which is my natural side. And I just poked a line drive up the middle, kind of battled that at bat, poked it up the middle, and then ended up stealing second base. So that was like my first hit, first stolen base. So it was a pretty memorable experience just to have that. And then I'll never forget sliding into second on the stolen base, and Robinson Cano picked up my helmet that had fallen off my head, and he handed it to me, and he was like, "Congratulations, man, that's awesome," because he knew I was a rookie. So he was very congratulative of my success there with stealing that base.
God bless him. Good guy, but unfortunately, whatever he did, I don't think he's going to be playing in the majors no more. God bless Yeah, he seems like he's a good guy, and I bet you he was. I bet you he was, especially what you said, what he did to you. So knowing that
Yeah.
you're a rookie. So
Yeah.
the following year, go figure, against one of my favorite teams because I'm from this area, the Tampa Bay Rays. You hit
Okay.
your very first home run lead off. Take us through that whole experience. Did you ever get to retrieve that ball, or what, the fan have that ball? What was that whole experience like? Because that had to be something, hitting your first home run, big league home run, and nonetheless lead off. Lead off is hard to hit a home run. I don't care what anybody says. That's the toughest thing to do, is hit a leadoff home run. So take us through that whole experience, and what was that like for you?
Yeah. So, Byron, I know you didn't have a lot of time to look at like my whole history or study it or anything, but I had never hit a lefty homer in my entire life. So I got in there and I'm feeling pretty good at the plate at this point in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I they kind of trained me, for the first 90% of my career, I was always the guy that would take first pitch and then work a walk, kind of try to battle a little bit, work a walk, poke singles here and there.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the A's that second year, when I got the rookie, chance to play as a rookie, the hitting coach was like, "All right, you're not taking first pitch anymore. If you see it and it's a good pitch, you stroke it." So he kind of flipped my mindset, and so I was so like dead red, like when that ball was anywhere close to the strike zone and it was the first pitch and it was a heater, I was swinging as hard as I could. So um, I finally connected on one and it just felt so pure, perfect barrel, right to the ball. And I knew I clicked it pretty well. Well, the funny thing is, the right fielder for the Rays at the time was Steven Souza Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Souza Jr. and I played together when I started switch hitting with the Nationals.
Wow, no way.
So he watched how bad I was initially. I mean, I was using like a little toothpick bat in my first year in the minor leagues. He and I were playing together, and he was just like this raw power, huge kind of guy. Hit homers. I would just set the table for him. He would hit me in and hit homers all the time. So he knew I didn't have any power, and he never knew that I could pull the ball, and he never knew I swung at first pitch
Mm-hmm.
because he only watched me be the guy that set the table. Well, I clicked the ball to right center, but more towards right field, like kind of where he was playing. And I look up and he's playing like almost behind the second baseman. He did not give me any respect and he's playing super shallow. So I hit the ball like as pretty much as hard as I could ever hit it left handed. And I see him in the back of his jersey just running to the fence. So I'm thinking triple out of the box. I did not think it was going to go out.
Mm-hmm.
But Tampa has the dome, so I think that helped me a little bit.
It
Maybe the
did. I'm sure,
air
yeah.
conditioning kind of helped me. I don't know. And that ball cleared, and I was already about to round second when I looked over at my third base coach, and he was like, telling me home run, home run. So I slowed down a little bit. My helmet already flew off because I was hustling for a triple.
Right.
And I look over at the fence, and I see Steven Souza just kind of looking at the fence like this, like, what just happened. So that was really the most gratifying part of hitting that homer, was doing it against Steven Souza. He's a good buddy of mine. So I
Did he
love getting.
did he ever come up to you and be like, "Oh yeah, I should have scouted you more, or predicted better that that could happen"?
Oh, he gave me so much grief for that. He was like, "What was that? Like all my years of playing with you, and I never saw anything like that." And no, but we're really close buddies, so he was just giving me congratulations, and he was also pretty shocked that that happened, especially on him. And then, yeah, so pretty fun experience for me. And then, of course, my dugout was just like, that's awesome. So, first lefty homer, first time was in the big league. So, that's a pretty cool experience.
Now, you since like you said, obviously that was inside of a dome, and it's there. I've been there. It's a crappy stadium. I hope the plans is that they remodel it, but I don't know what's going to go on. When you were there playing, what was your experience like playing? I know it was a little. I know it was just a couple games because obviously you guys play a series, but what was it like playing in the Trop? Like, because I know a lot of fans and a lot of players I've heard come out and say it's crappy. They don't like it. They don't like playing it. What was your experience like playing in the Trop besides hitting that home run off Souza?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite place because as a center fielder, the hardest thing to do there is read the fly balls when it hits that white roof.
Mm-hmm.
When your eye line gets above where that white roof is, the
Mm-hmm.
ball will blend in with the ceiling, so it's very, very hard to judge. And I've lost a ball tagging up from third base. I've lost a ball kind of in the lights and in the ceiling, and I couldn't tell when it was coming down, and I misjudged my timing on tagging up to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be really tricky. So I don't love that just because it makes me a little uncomfortable looking into the ceiling. And then I'm never really a huge fan of turf. It's just hard on the legs and hard on my calves, for a 3-day series. So I commend guys that have long careers that are playing on turf because it takes somebody who's keeping up with their body pretty well.
Now, after the A's, you go to the Royals, as we talked about. Go figure. Did you ever take the field for them? Because I know I got to do better on the research, but I tried looking it up, and I don't know if you had. Did you ever get to take the field for them? Because I'm not seeing any stats for the Royals. What was that experience like for them? Because I know I do see that you unfortunately did get designated for assignment by them.
Yeah.
But tell us about that experience with the Royals.
Yeah, so I got traded in the back half of 2016. I was in a slump in the A's at that time, and they traded for me, and then they pretty much had their starting lineup set.
Mhm.
But they called me back actually to keep control of me. They could save one of my options by sending me over there and then calling me up to the big leagues. So they sent me there and they kept me in the big leagues the last 2 months of the year. I got into pinch run. I got like one or two starts here and there, but nothing notable with them. And then the following year, I got called up a few times, but again, I didn't get really any regular playing time with them.
Do you feel like you should have had more playing time with them, or do you feel like they gave up on you, like the Nationals did? Did you feel that way?
No, I didn't really earn it there. So it would have been one thing if I was hitting really well in the minor leagues with them because I was up and down in AAA.
Hmm.
But at that point, my legs had really started hurting me, my knees, and I didn't have that same explosiveness that I kind of came up with. And so I can't really blame them for not putting me out there as a regular.
Now that you brought that up, that led me to my next question. Ultimately, when you decided to retire from the game, did you know right then and there that it was definitely my time to go, or did you still want to give it a go and try playing?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to give it a go and try playing. My body felt really strong, but I had like a hamstring issue, and then my left knee started to hurt. And as a speed guy who only relied on my legs for everything, that was really problematic, obviously. So once I started declining and my speed just kind of ticked down a few percent each year, and I knew it at that point, I knew it was time to hang it up, at least give it a rest. But at the same time, I was definitely trying to rehab to get back. So if I could have gotten healthy and figured out a way to just kind of fix the pain that I was dealing with, I certainly would have given it another try.
Now, we got 10 minutes here. I gotta ask you. I'm sure you still follow the game, so I'll give you some current topics in the game. I gotta ask you. Since you stole bases, and you were fast enough to steal them, unlike me in the little leagues. I could not steal worth crap, but you like where the game is going nowadays? Because I see some teams trying to bring back the stolen base and what it was back in the like the 80s and 70s and 80s, early 90s. Do you like where the game is going in that regards, or do you think it's too analytic driven now?
That's a tricky question. Um, I think that, first of all, analytics I think are very smart for teams to use because it's hard to deny the numbers, especially when you see a strong correlation between something a player does really well and producing runs or producing helping win the game. So I think it's really intelligent for these teams to use that because it's just playing percentages. It's like just same thing that Vegas does. They play a percentage knowing a bunch of people are going to come there and gamble,
Right.
and they typically win. You can see the monstrosities they built, all the hotels out there in Vegas. So it's kind of the same thing for me. So I think it's very smart for teams to do it. Do I think it's good for the game? I think that it can be good and bad. I think that you lose a little bit of the human element, especially on the scouting end, when you ignore characteristics that a person might have versus their stats, like when they're in high school. Because it's unfair for a guy to judge a guy that's in high school based on their stats. But if they have strong characteristics and attributes and mental toughness, and they're a good teammate, and they've got a competitive edge, and they're a championship mentality, like those things are really important too. So maybe they've got a lot of talent and are projectable, but they don't have great stats. I feel like the analytics can be a negative thing for that player because he might miss out on an opportunity where 20 years ago they might take a shot at him just because of his characteristics, his mental characteristics. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I bet now you mentioned that I got asked that about you personally as a player because I know that's when analytics, when you were still playing, was just coming into the game. Do you think that kind of also affected you as a player a little bit?
A little bit because now they could see my speed was declining, probably. They never told me that specifically, but I knew how my legs felt and I knew my numbers weren't as good. So they probably saw the writing on the wall with me and, my body earlier than they wanted to admit. So I couldn't get away with, people thought I was running fast, but like I knew I wasn't getting to that top tier speed I had.
Right.
So analytics probably revealed that pretty easily. Plus, they probably didn't love my analytics for my swing because I was one of the softest contact hitters.
I
In
saw
the
that
big.
stat. Yep. Yep. And
Okay, you did see that. So I was one of the softest by far, but I got on. I would use my legs. I would chop a ball on the ground, but beat it out. I would do whatever I had to do to get on base.
you were true definition of an old school. That's what I grew up on. That's what I grew up watching. I'm 31 in the early 90s. That's what I grew up on before the whole steroid era. I grew up on that whole just get on base, whack the ball no matter how hard you hit it, just bam, get on base and steal. That's what I grew up on, and that's true baseball right there. Not all this casual fan where it's just home run,
Yeah.
strikeout, sing. It's like it's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring,
Exactly.
man. And I'm sure it was boring. I'm sure it's boring for you too. I'm sure you still watch it. I'm sure it's boring for you to watch. I mean,
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you. Like it takes a little bit of the excitement out, especially the stolen base being so few and far between these days. It's probably one of the more fun things in baseball to watch a guy steal base, and home runs are awesome, but when your
right.
whole team is just a home run hitter, it's like, man, like there could be a couple of games where not much is happening because it's just home runs or nothing. So I totally agree with you. It takes a little more of the excitement away. It takes away from guys like me who are smaller but maybe fast, who might not get an opportunity these days because they're not like some of these pitchers are hard to steal on these days. These pitchers have
Yeah,
gotten really good at holding people on. So
yeah.
there's a lot to that. I mean, the whole analytics conversation is certainly one that would be debated for a long time, with the marketable ability of baseball to the fans. I mean, what's going to be best for the fans? That should probably be the most important concern for whether analytics are good for the game.
Now let's talk about your two teams that you played for. Well, the two main ones that you had a cup of teas with, Oakland and Kansas City. Oakland is fighting with the city for a new stadium. Not going to get into that, but they're they're one of the lowest payrolls along with the Rays and all that. And so is the Royals. They're the same way as well, even though they're fighting for a new stadium as well. What do they need to do to get to the level of what they were not even 10 years ago making the playoffs? Because they haven't been relevant really since they've made the playoffs consecutively all them years. And the same with the Royals, who won the World Series and then just dipped down. What do those two teams need to do from what you've seen? What do they need to do to get back to that level?
Oh man, that's a good question too. For the A's, I would say they just need to start paying guys. That's simple. You got like all the talent in the world has come through there in the last 25, 30 years.
Mm.
Um, so at a certain point, each of those guys grows up and is attracted, like other teams are looking at them. And so they could either decide to keep them and pay them more, or they could get rid of them. And unfortunately, they pretty much always choose to just get rid of players and keep their payroll really low. So that would be a simple fix for me for the Oakland side because they've got plenty of talent. The Royals, I'm not sure. Being at only the AAA level with them, and then AAA in big leagues, it's hard for you to really get to know intimately an organization. I'm not really sure what's going on with the Royals situation there. So I know they're shaking things up a little bit because Dayton Moore is no longer there, and they've hired some new
Yeah.
leadership over there. So we'll see what they do in the next few years and how they're rebuilding.
Now, um, baseball, I think, has always been troublesome with marketing their players because you only see high market teams promote them high market players. What do you think baseball needs to do to grow their game further for fans that don't get to see players like, for instance, on the Rays? I know they don't stay that long because they get rid of them, but still, regardless, they're good players. What do you think baseball needs to do to market good players, unlike the ones that are in the major markets of LA, San Diego, New York, Philly, them big areas? What does baseball need to do you think?
Yeah, that's another good question. I guess one idea would be just to uh, broadcast different teams periodically so fans can get to know them, like you said. I think another thing would be just to highlight where the player comes from, their backstories a little more, like during the games. I think that people relate to people when they can connect.
Mhm.
So if you know their story, where they came from, like for instance, if I'm playing in Oakland, I'm in the opposite corner of the country. If the broadcasters get to know my story and talk about it quite a bit on the air while they're broadcasting the games, that gives a little kid who's watching it a chance to say, "Oh, like I'm a short guy. I like to run fast. Like I could be like him." And I don't know. So I think that they could probably try a little bit more to not just highlight like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the big name teams. They could probably spread it out a little more in the broadcasting and also just relook at the way they market and talk about their players.
Couldn't agree with you more. Two quick questions, and then I'll let you go so you can get to bed. I know it's early; the season hasn't started. I'm sure you haven't kept up with all the moves. Neither have I, this because there's been so many. Early predictions for World Series, and who do you think will win it?
Um, I got to go. Oh man, that's such a tough one. Um, I guess I'll go with the last team I played with, and that was the Yankees. They're bound to get one here soon.
Oh
They're
yeah,
bound to. So
oh yeah.
they're paying Judge, and that's a good move in my opinion. and I'm excited for what's to come with Judge at the helm, just leading that ship.
Right. I agree with you on that. And who do you see coming out of the NL to face them?
It's hard to bet against the Dodgers. They have a squad over there, so it's hard to bet against
I
them.
disagree with that either. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
willing to pay it for anybody.
Right.
I couldn't agree with you on that. I could not disagree with you on that one. So, but my
Mm-hmm.
Padres are close though with that though.
Oh
They're
yeah,
still
don't
the same.
sleep on the Padres now. I forgot about them. That is definitely a team to watch. They are for sure a powerhouse that I would be very fearful of if I was playing them.
That I was shocked when they got Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah,
That's the land of shortstops over there with how many they've got.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to it. Like I've been through thick and thin as a fan with them. I've been through their good days when they went to the World Series. That's how I first became a Padre fan with Tony Gwynn as their
Hmm.
main guy. He was the one who got me being a Padre fan. And then I've been through the years way after he retired, and they were horrible. And then they came back for a couple years, and now just this, like I can't believe it. Now they're trying to actually finally going to compete and spend money, unlike what they were doing about 10 years ago. I'm excited. I can't wait. Um, but before I let you go, the one last question I asked to everybody, we got into this a little bit. I asked you if you wanted to coach. You said, nah, I'll stick to what I am, which is
Yeah.
understandable. But if you were coaching, either minor league, pro, whatever, little league with the youngsters, whatever level, what would you tell them and how would you help them to get to where you got to the big leagues, to fighting through the minors, ultimately to being cut? What would you tell them to help them with their success?
Hmm. I would say don't doubt yourself and have a goal. So my goal was always I just wanted to make the next team I was trying out for. So, for instance, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to make the number one travel team in my rec league. Nothing crazy, but
Yeah,
I was thankful enough to get there. And then when I got to, let's say, middle school, my goal was to get good enough to make the freshman baseball team at my high school. And then when I made the freshman team at high school, I was like, man, well, I want to compete really hard to get the varsity team and make the varsity team. And then when I had success there, I was like, oh man, I really would love a college scholarship so that I can, help my financial situation. My mom paying everything. I was raised by a single mom, so she was paying everything.
right.
So help my financial situation. So I got a scholarship offer in my junior year that was paying for school. So I was very thankful. And then, so my goal was always let's get to the next level. And then even after that, I didn't even know I was going to get drafted, like I told you, but I definitely saw like, okay, I can compete with these guys, and these guys are getting drafted. So like, why can't I?
Mhm.
So then my goal became, okay, I could get drafted, and I got to that. And then when you're in the minors, the goal is always to get to the next level. So again, like what I would say to them is have a goal and keep that in mind with everything you do. So if you're going and eating ice cream every night, it's probably not going to be good for your body.
No.
But not saying never do it, but I'm just saying,
Right.
just keep it in mind with everything you do. If you have a choice to go work out or go run or go play around with friends, play some catch football or play video games, I think, playing touch football or just going out and running around in a field one day would be more beneficial. So things like that, just keep it in mind, and everything you do, just have that in the back of your mind.
I couldn't have said it any better. And real quick, I don't know if you play any video games.
So yeah, I grew up playing video games. I have 4 kids now, so I don't anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely have a gamer inside of me for sure.
Okay, so say if you had to show, would you play that like most players do?
No, I never played MLB The Show actually.
Oh, oh man, you got to compete with your other players, man.
I know that would be fun though, but I never had it, so I just stuck to like the generic like Mario Kart, Mario Party, some shooter games, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's old school Mario. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Old school. That's
Yep.
that's what we grew up on.
Nintendo 64. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. That's what we grew up on. I mean, can't go wrong there. I mean, can't go wrong for sure.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, can't also go wrong with the Pokemon too. Pokemon was a good one too growing up.
Yeah, I
So
had that on the Game Boy, so I played that on the Game Boy a little bit.
exactly. But I do thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know I'm like me. You just said you had 4 kids, so kudos to you. I got 2. They're a hassle, and they're God bless them. I love them, but they're a hassle.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I will send you the episode. Feel free to share it. Um, also, hey, I gotta throw in a joke here.
Okay.
Since you know Souza, bring him this way. I've been trying to reach a hold of Souza, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'll let him know. I'll get on him.
He was one of my favorite Rays, so
Gotcha. Yeah, he's a personality, that's for sure.
oh, for sure, yes.
Well, if you get him on, you gotta ask him about the most memorable leadoff first pitch homer that's ever been hit way over his head.
Believe me, I will ask him. I'll see what he says to that. I'm sure he'll remember that too. You can't forget it. You can't forget it.
Yeah, he will. Yeah.
But I do thank you for your time. It was awesome. Good luck in the real estate world. I hope all goes well for you. I'll definitely stay in touch with you. I'll text you here and there throughout the season. But yeah, I do appreciate it. Thank you again. And you have a good night.
All right, Byron. No problem. Thanks for having me on, and I enjoyed talking to you.
Without a doubt, it was fun. And I'll send you the episode when I'm done.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, bye. Billy Burns, everybody. That concludes this episode of Coffee Time with Billy Burns, former MLB player. But yeah, a good conversation. I'm glad to have had that from a fellow take on a stolen base guy. Like I honestly, I'd have to say he was my first one to have that was this guy who stole bases mainly and throughout his career. So it was a pleasure to have him, and yeah, it was fun. Until then, this concludes episode I think 109 with Billy Burns. Till then, have a good night. I don't know who I'm going to have on next, but we'll see. Until then, don't do anything stupid. Take care.